For anyone that doesn't know, Teradata have been in the data warehousing business for about, well, over 40 years now. We spend a lot of time enabling our clients to store customer data, to use it, to analyze it, and then to act upon it in real time to improve their marketing and to optimize their relationships that they have with their customers. And I want to share some of the experiences that we've had from a CRM perspective and how we're seeing the very different worlds of advertising and CRM beginning to kind of collide, and it's beginning to make people really think twice about not just how they buy media or they use data, but really how they structure their organizations for this more interconnected world which is driven by data. About Teradata Interactive, our real focus as a data services organization is about enabling our clients to use data to create a commercial benefit that they could use either to optimize their existing marketing operation. We spend a lot of time enabling our clients to collect data from different channels, from different aspects of their marketing and advertising operations, to pull it all together and to create synchronicity, to allow them to achieve the nirvana of an omni-channel experience. What's very interesting is that we've seen that as obviously we're seeing this continued path of digitization of the whole world around us, there's been a seismic shift around how people feel about customer data, just in terms of how they can use it to optimize their behavior, but where does it sit within the organization? Who owns that? Who owns the customer relationship? And this has ultimately changed how they feel about the customer journey. And to give you a context of why there's been this shift, if we think back about the existing customer journey, where it's come from, we've seen the situation within retail where we've gone from a single kind of a single silo experience. This is where you go to a storefront and you form a relationship with the shopkeeper and you buy through one channel alone. And as that's expanded through obviously the development of convenient shopping, of self-serve, and then the internet, we're seeing that the different ways in which a consumer is influenced by advertisers to buy a certain product has completely changed. And how businesses have reacted to that has been to recruit those skill sets to deal with each of those different touch points, and organize themselves around recruiting individuals who are specialists in the retail experience or the digital experience. But naturally, in the process of hiring those types of talents and organizing them in those types of groups, you create a siloed mentality. You then underpin this with business objectives and KPIs around forwarding the performance of each of those individual silos, and you can see where we currently exist within the marketplace. That's also made worse by this flawed understanding that consumers start their customer journey in one silo and they complete it in that very same channel. As we all know, and as we've kind of seen today, that simply doesn't represent the reality of the modern world. This whole premise of the customer journey and the flawed thinking of that the customer experience is born and ended in one silo is also compounded by the fact that different skill sets have been based around whether or not you are hunting new customers or farming existing relationships. So the whole role of acquiring new customers, the sales approach, and the account management or nurture of existing customers have been created as two separate disciplines. The internet's changed all that. We're seeing a massive increase in the number of digital media touch points. The Internet of Things is exploding the way that we interact with our customers. That massively creates an increase in competition from those people that actually creates the digital touch points. Not necessarily the end vendors, but you think about app providers, banking app providers, for instance. They're increasingly holding the relationship with the customer rather than the banks themselves. And people are beginning to see that it's important to create a digital bridge to your customers. We spend a lot of time with traditional brands who are looking to create a one-to-one relationship with their customers so that once they have that relationship, they can advertise to them directly and deliver a personalized, coherent experience across all channels. Personalization is increasingly important. The context of why you have a relationship with a brand is increasingly important. But I think more and more organizations are aware that they need to do something about it and connect their data and synchronize it. But ultimately, even though we understand the unacceptability of silo marketing, organizations are still being held back by business-held KPIs based around those siloed organized groups, or by the technology which enforces last click or only clickstream-based tracking methodologies. So, I mean, when you consider that, the whole world is a very complicated place. You chuck in programmatic and it becomes just a step more complex. For programmatic, it gives advertisers the opportunity to reach out to individual decision makers or individual customers and personalize on a one-to-one basis, whatever device they're using, wherever they are. I mean, that is incredible. That's a sea change in how we advertise to our intended audience. And since we know that more and more of the world around us is becoming digitized, we're expecting every single ad format to be potentially bought and sold over a programmatic basis, to be available to be bid on through a DSP. And because of that capability, the whole basis of programmatic buying is based around what you know about your customers and your intended audience. If you don't have that data, then your efforts are severely undermined, and you're at a disadvantage compared to your competitors. So all of a sudden, data becomes the elixir of the advertising industry, and it throws up the inevitable questions. Well, all of the techniques that we're currently the sole remit of CRM being merged and shared with advertising. We're seeing the whole aspect opening a Pandora's box of questions for organizations about where does this area fit? Where does it sit within the organization? So what does this mean for brands nowadays? Well, there are several repercussions that we're beginning to see just from a CRM perspective, but also from an advertising perspective. First of all, brand loyalty, as it's traditionally been seen in CRM terms, is beginning to be disrupted. Disruption from personalized one-to-one advertising is beginning to upset the status quo for CRMers. And we're seeing the competition threat, as I mentioned before, from anyone who actually holds a digital touch point. So, where we're seeing a kind of almost like a middleware of publishers or from other providers that are holding that customer relationship, they're dictating the loyalty of that user rather than the end vendor. It's become apparent that those customers that do not know anything about their prospect pool or do not know anything about their customers through programmatic buying are losing out. They're paying more to reach their audience, they're becoming less targeted, and their competitors are beginning to cherry pick their most lucrative audience. So when you see that, you're seeing advertisers, potential brands losing audience share and not being able to reach their customers in the right way. So data really matters. It matters not just to the CRM folk, but also the advertisers in terms of collecting that data, housing it, and then using it in real-time basis. We speak to a lot of customers who have huge amounts of data, but they can't action it in real time. And this is where those organizations who are able to bring their data together, to piece it and understand the entire customer journey, and to act on that data within the right context and in real time, are making huge strides in performance. We operate a campaign management platform which allows you to integrate your email with your call center, with your offline data, to overlay that with social data, which we onboard and connect to a single customer record. Ultimately, if you're able to create a digital ID and connect that to a known user ID, then this gives you the capability for the very first time to deliver a synchronized omni-channel experience. It's no longer a fantasy, and I believe that those customers who are able to join the dots and bring this experience together are able to deliver a far more compelling proposition, a more relevant customer experience than others in the space. For the first time, people are beginning to see a 360-degree view of the customer journey, not just from the time they become a customer, but before they're a prospect. And a lot of people are actually generating data points with their audience way ahead of time. So the earlier that you're able to register your prospect's interest in your organization, and very often say through lead generation, or you're able to download an app and drop iBeacons or cookies, that you're then able to track that user relationship all the way through to sale and beyond. And that gives you so much more insight into what's driving the context of your relationship, what's driving the rationale for that user to have a relationship with you in the first place. And that ultimately should lead to optimization of the messaging, the relevance, and the offers that you're able to provide. But ultimately, people beginning to then think, well, hang on, if I can see the benefit of doing this, why have I got siloed teams? Why have I got a PPC team and a separate display team and a separate CRM team? It makes absolutely no business sense. And you're beginning to see people transform their organization and consider creating marketing teams around customer experiences, i.e. buying shoes for a wedding, or if you're buying a house for the first time. So your marketing team become almost a team of generalists. They consider what happens during this process. How do I touch this prospect or this consumer during the process of this experience? This is one of the reasons why they have a relationship with me. I need to plan my marketing more effectively across every single touch point on that path from introduction through to sale and beyond. But really, this whole process of being able to really focus on the omni-channel experience will only be possible if you start to look at the measurement aspect of this. I mean, we heard from Repercussions earlier about sales attribution. People have been playing in this area for quite some time, and I'm surprised by how many experiences of attribution being just managed by digital. And when you consider that actually attribution it runs across all channels, why on earth should it be managed by digital? Seems ludicrous to me. You simply see examples in that situation of stakeholders creating sales attribution methodologies to reinforce existing strategy rather than inform it. And for that, you really need to take a more strategic, high-level approach to data integrity, to analytical integrity, and enforce attribution at the very highest level. And this naturally begins to make everyone question about what's the value of digital. Really, it doesn't mean anything if everything is digitized. If digital is just simply a format, it's actually about the customer experience. So we're seeing the age of the generalists, those individuals that understand data, who have a good skill set in analytics and understand the bigger picture, beginning to play more prominent strategic roles in organizations. Last point that I want to make is the threat of data leakage. As we know, data is almost like the new gold for everyone. We're seeing a lot of organizations benefit from either having their own data and utilizing it in real time, or from making use of publicly available data. And there are some dangers there for any brands that have large amounts of data. You've got to think about where that data is sitting, how it's being utilized. Even though a lot of companies will, might take your data, manage it for you, very often it might be in a shared data environment, and there is the danger of data leakage, of Chinese walls not being exactly what they seem. And you've got to remember that every single time you match your data to another data record, that enriches not just your data, but somebody else's. So, that would be my final word on this, but it's certainly, from our perspective, creating huge waves in the CRM space, and I'm sure there'll be more to come. Thanks for listening. I hope that was useful.